Hi y'all, Sandra here. It is September 14th, 2019. Today's video is going to be regarding our straw bale house, which you can see behind me. And I am going to walk around the outside of it, and Dave's going to join me for part of it. And we're going to talk about some of the construction details of this house that he and I together built. As I mentioned, our house is a straw bale house. The exterior walls of it are constructed from oat straw. Now, straw is very different from hay. Hay is something that you feed to livestock, but straw it's what's left when you take all of the leafy parts and seed parts out of whatever the type of plant material that it is. Out. So all of that has been removed and it's what's left. So it's mostly the stems of some type of plant. These are the walls of the house. As you can see, they are relatively straight. There are a little bit of waviness here and there. It is not a very angular corner. The corners of our house are very rounded. For the exterior, Dave and I chose to use a concrete composite. The reason that we chose that over a more natural building material such as an earthen plaster, which is used a lot in straw bale houses, is that we wanted a more maintenance-free exterior. We went with a lime plaster mixed with concrete over the outside. By the back door, Dave and I put our handprints into the final layer, and literally our hands have touched every single square inch of this house. When Dave and I were preparing to build the house, in advance of actually rendering the exterior and interior, we did a lot of testing. I did a tremendous amount of research online and in books that I could find on different methods that others had used. And then Dave and I set about making our own recipe for what we were going to put on the exterior and interior walls of the straw bales. One of the things that we did in our testing was we took one of the bales that we were going to be using to build the walls, and we tested on that with different recipes for the render. And we saved this portion of the exterior render recipe that was the one that we finally did settle on for using. And originally it was attached to a bale, and we had it sitting outside in the elements for probably about 5 years before the bale finally disintegrated, and we just peeled this off of it. And it's 3 layers, so we went around the house over there 3 times, fully coating every square inch with each layer is a slightly different recipe. This would be the first layer that would be what's touching the actual bales, and that was pushed into the bales. And you can see this side where the bale is gone, and you can see how textured that is, but how much it actually kind of is squished into the straw. So this has been sitting outside completely unpainted. It's been exposed to snow and rain and ice, and it's still holding up great. I mean, this is super solid. Here in the middle you can see a little bit of an indentation, and that is where Dave struck this piece with a hammer. And you can just see how durable it is. I mean, he wasn't trying to be gentle with it because this was our test piece, and we really wanted to determine how tough this was going to be. So basically this, in varying thicknesses, is around the entire exterior of this house. Dave has joined me outside. He was inside cooking, but he's got that going now, so he doesn't have to be in there. And we're going to talk a little bit about how the walls are. It's not just the concrete recipe that I showed you before. Dave, you want to talk about that?
We added wire to reinforce, like metal reinforced concrete. We added wire, and then around the windows we added like a heavier mesh, and around the top with our trim or our pieces along the top there, we just built out a curb out of the wire mesh and then formed the concrete over it. So that's all attached to the top piece of metal up here with screws inside of it. You can't see the screws anymore because we mudded over them. And the whole metal in this house, when it came on the truck, it was just a real small pile of metal. There was only 2x4 metal, whatever you want to call them.
C-purlins.
Yeah, C-purlin extruded metal. And the roofing material, the gutter apron, and then the metal that we put on the ridges. And like I said, when it showed up, it was just a real small pile of metal. And then we fabricated just about everything out of that.
Okay, so in a lot of traditional houses, people go to different manufacturers and suppliers or Home Depot or wherever, and they buy things like the soffit panels and all of that, and it just gets put together. But in our house, we don't have any of that. Like, a lot of those components, Dave actually built out of scrap pieces that were kind of left over from the framing of the house. And right up here, you can see.
That's like the Soffit Vent, where it goes into the attic, so some of the heat can dissipate out of the attic, and it goes all the way around the house. And I made it out of leftover pieces from the roof and the purlins. It's got hardware cloth to keep the squirrels out, and then it's got metal bug screen to keep the little bugs out. And it's sealed tight all the way around. We don't get any bugs in the attic.
So all of that is custom built, and Dave welded all those little pieces together.
The window frames on here, 75% of the material was made out of the forms from the concrete. We had a kind of an intricate form job on the curb. So we took all that and framed these windows, and these windows are floating in the straw with a lentil on the top. And I constructed it with 2x4s and screwed and glued the whole frame together with the lentil that goes over the top of the straw, so it's sitting there. And then after that, I took pieces of metal from the roof and cut them into strips with the plasma cutter. And I only have a 2-foot break, so I made all these pieces. I kind of engineered the fold to line up, and I made all these pieces to put it on all the windows. So the windows are wood, but they're wrapped in metal. So there's bugs and whatever, the sun. It's pretty tough.
We recycled a lot of the things that we used. So like Dave was saying, the forms, the wooden forms that we used for the slab got put into the house. And they also are included in the door frames.
The slab has a curb on it too. It's raised up so the straw isn't sitting right on the inside. So if you get a flood or something on the inside, pipe breaks, it's like 2.5 or 3 inches up. And there's heated floor and all the rebar in there. We put beams down to hard rock. And there's 25 yards of concrete in the slab, and there's like 25 yards of stucco on the house. So it's a whole bunch of mud. We put 3-foot overhangs on the house just to help protect everything from rain and keep moisture away from it. But these overhangs, the purlins came out here, and I just took a piece of 1/8 inch sheet metal that fit on the end of it, and I welded them on. I welded it on the end. Then I drilled a hole so in case any water would ever get in there, it can drain out. And then these pieces that go out to the next one, that tie them together, them are 2x4 purlins cut in half. I used a plasma cutter and a straight edge and just cut them right down the middle.
The screen doors on the back and front door were made by Dave. This is one of the latches on the screen door, and we actually found these parts laying in the road. So like they probably fell out of the back of somebody's pickup truck or something, and we have no idea what they originally were, but Dave took them and used them to create some latches. The front door of our house is completely custom. It's custom size, and Dave built the front door. The door is constructed from parts that we salvaged out of the old farmhouse that used to exist on the property that we lived in while we were building the straw bale house. You can see how thick the door is. The wood panels that it's made from were some of the wall panels in the old farmhouse. It's extremely heavy. I'll talk a little more about this whenever I do a video of the inside and talking about some of the inside details of the house. The metal cladding over the outside of the chimney pipe, that was all scrap pieces that were left over from whenever we did our roof. It's got a metal roof. That on the top is a cupola that helps us with our passive cooling. It's like a giant air chimney in the very center of the house. It's got windows on all sides of it, and we open that up in the summertime. So as you can probably tell from what I have said so far, the building of this house was an exercise in squeezing every last bit of use from all of the resources that we had, and very little waste at the end of the project. So that about wraps up what I wanted to say about the exterior of our straw bale house. I do plan to make a video kind of examining some of the details on the inside of the house in the future, so stay tuned for that. It'll be included in the straw bale house playlist, which I will put a link to in the description down below this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions or comments, you can leave them down below, and I think that's it. Bye, y'all.